Joining us now for our bi-weekly Oakland Schools Education Insider is Stephen Snead, Supervisor of Curriculum and Assessment with Oakland Schools, as well as Jacqueline Mitchell, Educational Improvement Consultant. Thank you both for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to have the both of you on today to talk about a really important topic in any educational system, whether it be an individual school district and all the way down to the individual classroom, and that is literacy. We know literacy is a very important topic and a key contributor to educational outcomes, but your team have been leading a countywide project now focusing on literacy in our K-12 schools called Project Leo 2.0. Stephen, please let our listeners know briefly what that work is and what this project really is going to have in scope across our local area.
Well, first of all, I apologize. In education, there's always the alphabet soup of all of the things. So Project Leo, L-E-O, isn't a zodiac sign. It stands for Literacy Essentials Oakland. And to put it quickly, it's a way in which our organization is helping to partner with each district shoulder to shoulder to really improve and support great instructional practices with our earliest learners in the area of literacy.
And now that we have a little bit of a better understanding about this, Jacqueline, can you explain some of the research that's gone into this program to inform the different key points that Project Leo 2.0 is hoping to achieve in Oakland schools?
Sure. This project rests upon the leading research that's happening in our state, specifically focused around improving literacy across the state. Some of the leading researchers in our state from Michigan State University and the University of Michigan have partnered with educators all over the state to identify what are the best research-based practices to move literacy forward. And from that, they've developed the essential instructional practices, and those essential instructional practices are the foundation of our work.
So through all this research and the planning for Project Leo 2.0, Stephen, what was looked at throughout Oakland schools from the ISD level, as well as maybe even from the individual school district level, about what needs to change in the curriculum behind literacy to make those improvements, and particularly to make those improvements at the younger ages, so that as children grow and as children continue to learn, that plasticity leads to ultimately better outcomes?
Yeah, so if you happen to Google search an image for like an old school classroom, what would you see? You would see desks and rows. And certainly many of us may be familiar with an experience of, okay, read this, turn this work at the end of the hour, and then it'll be graded. So we're trying to shift away from those isolated practices in which students aren't actively engaging with each other, aren't actively engaging to the text. And we're trying to shift towards a more active engagement within the classroom, high quality small group instruction, evidence-based resources, modeling, phonological awareness, phonemic awareness. We're trying to infuse all of these practices that we know really work for kids. And we're trying to shift away from some of those practices that may arguably have worked 20 or 30 or 40, 50 years ago. But now in 2023, we need to accelerate that learning experience, and we need to unlock the very best potential in each of our school districts. So again, our team, like Jacqueline and many, many others, is certainly not just us two. We have a whole team here at Oakland that's really working with each district, coaches, assistant superintendents, building principals, and ultimately classroom teachers to infuse some of those practices Jacqueline was talking about in day-to-day instruction, so that if you Google the classroom of the future of 2023, it looks nothing like what some of us may have experienced 30 or 40 years ago.
But Jacqueline, on the other hand, we learned that way for so many decades. I learned that way. My parents learned that way. We both read just fine. I have plenty of friends that are reading constantly, and it's one of their favorite hobbies. So how is this more effective than, or maybe, as effective or more effective or effective in different ways necessarily than educational outcomes of the past?
So, what our research is always doing is we're studying classrooms. We're studying successful school systems and school districts to identify what practices are really supporting children today. And so, while as Stephen mentioned, some of those really, the practices that many of us grew up with were successful back then, we're finding that they are not as successful today. And so, we are leaning into the practices and the research that we know is impacting students today. We're looking at successful districts, successful structures, and identifying the things that work. And then we're taking them to the districts and helping districts to identify their very own strategic implementation plan to follow into this work. And so we walk alongside the teachers, we walk alongside the coaches, the administrators to support them in implementing this work and building effective practices that support student learning.
And Stephen, to follow that up, Jacqueline makes an interesting point that these practices are being explored at a county-wide level, in some cases, an ISD-wide level, in this case from Oakland schools. But it is going to ultimately come down to those individual classroom teachers and their interactions with their students and those individual school districts. And they know better than any where their students are at, and what practices are currently in place and what may work for those students. So then how does Oakland schools factor into that to make Project Leo 2.0 work on a more customized level, district to district?
Well, speaking of, Jacqueline talked about some of the research. So one of the things we now know is that we've got to activate the prior knowledge and the funds of knowledge that our kids have, not only kids, but our teachers too, because our teachers have a deep, rich sense of expertise, not only in their practice area, but in the students that are in their classroom. So the reason why this has to be customized district to district is because each child is different, each classroom is different, each school and district is different, but they all have a deep and rich knowledge of who they are and where they want to go. So, and part of Project Leah, and by the way, this is research and evidence based in some of the literacy essentials work that has been done statewide, is that when you activate prior knowledge, when you get students to predict, make questions about tech, activate what they already know about a subject or what they're curious about, when you activate their funds of knowledge, that actually deepens their comprehension of what they're encountering. And so because our teachers have deep, high quality relationships with their students, they become partners with us in helping to activate those funds of knowledge so that we can accelerate their learning experience and literacy.
Adding these instructional resources or providing them to these school districts comes along with ultimately helping them set those curricular goals. And in the end, Jacqueline, what do you and others on the team that have been forming Project Leo 2.0 see as the ultimate outcome of these different practices being implemented throughout Oakland schools and in these individual school districts?
Well, the ultimate outcome is three-tiered. We really want to help districts set up these strong structures in their system. We really want to support developing strong leaders, collaborative leaders that support all of their staff on all levels. And we also want to really support developing strong literacy coaches within the districts who work alongside teachers, working with them in professional learning, job embedded support, where these coaches are in classrooms with teachers, helping them to improve their teaching practice. And that's a goal outcome that we want to see. In addition, we'd love to see children loving reading, loving writing, and embracing learning. We'd love to cultivate the genius in every child and help them to identify their talents, their skills, and be the best people that they can be.
We're joined on the Megacast today by Stephen Snead, Supervisor of Curriculum and Assessment at Oakland Schools, as well as their Educational Improvement Consultant, Jacqueline Mitchell. Stephen, about a minute left before we'll have to say goodbye today. Anything else from Oakland Schools' perspective from the administrative level that we haven't mentioned about Project Leo 2.0, or maybe even the timeline of when students and teachers, as well as parents, can expect some of these practices to be put in place?
Well, Jacqueline hit the nail on the head. She got me excited when she talked about joy. That's when she really hooked me. We want our students to experience joy in reading. We want them to come home and say, oh, mommy, daddy, oh, I can read this now, right? So getting more of our students to approach on grade level text and getting them really excited and igniting their passions about who they are and what they're curious about in the world, we hope to see those results in classrooms all across the county with each of our partners right away and for the years to come. And as this project continues to evolve and be supported by us over time, we hope that more and more children every single year experience that joy of reading in their classrooms, in our schools and districts.
Yeah, we know just how amazing the various outcomes of reading and developing that reading comprehension can have in our students, not just as they're developing into their educational life and their life after their K through 12 education, but also in creativity and much more. Stephen, Jacqueline, thank you so much for telling us more about this.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure.